Hi everyone, welcome back to GoLocal Live. We're here in the Navigate Credit Union Broadcast Center with Nick Autiello.
There we go.
Autiello, my apologies. He's here with us now. Primary's coming up. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So Nick is running for Senate seat in District 5
That's
here
right.
in Providence. So you were here in May. Tell us a little bit how things have been going since you've been here.
Things are going really well. So first of all, we have been endorsed by the 17 labor unions of the Rhode Island Building and Construction Trades Council and the political arm of the Providence Chamber of Commerce, which is really exciting because that means both labor and the business community think that I'm the best candidate in my race to move our economy forward, to create jobs, and to build an economy that works for all Rhode Islanders.
That's great.
Yeah.
And so with the primary coming up pretty soon, you feel like you're in pretty good shape?
I feel like we're in good shape. You know, I go out on the doors every day talking to my neighbors. They're ready for change. They're ready for a new direction in Rhode Island. They're ready for younger leadership. You know, they've seen a lot of people stick around the State House for a long time and not accomplish a whole lot of anything. And so they're ready for people with the energy, the passion, and the drive to push for the big kinds of transformational things we need here in Rhode Island.
That's great to hear. And so this is a big race. There's some really big figures being thrown around when it comes to campaign finance. Your opponent, Sam Bell, has about $50,000 in his war chest. Paul Jabor has about $20,000. Your campaign at last check around 42. These are really big figures for a local race.
Yeah, they are. And you know, unfortunately, these things do cost money. And when you have an election with 3 viable candidates, it costs even more because you're trying to get your message out. And it's terrible. I mean, I really wish we would go to a system where elections were a lot shorter. Especially, you see presidential elections that go on for 2 years. Even these elections don't need to go on for as long as they do. We could do it in a shorter amount of time, save money. But I mean, I'm proud of a lot of the money we've raised. I've raised more money from Rhode Islanders than both of my opponents combined. So I'm really proud of that. And I think it says a lot when, ordinary people step up to back a candidate.
And speaking on campaign finance as well, your campaign did file a complaint regarding the incumbents.
We did.
Campaign finance.
Senator Jabor, kind of just very basically what happened because these laws are a little arcane. He was very clearly making campaign expenditures when he had an affidavit filed that said that he wouldn't be spending more than $1,000 on any campaign-related expenses in total in 2018. He since has rescinded that, but at the time he was making and putting out materials, it said that he wasn't going to be spending more money than he clearly was. So the complaint was dismissed by the Board of Elections this morning, but I think it speaks to a bigger problem in our campaign finance laws. It shouldn't be hard for us to tell people where our money is coming from and where it's going. And candidates shouldn't try and hide where their money is coming from and where it's going. For example, Senator Jabor just self-funded his own campaign. I wish I had the money sitting around to be able to do that. So it wouldn't have been complicated to just file a piece of paper before spending any money. And that's all we were saying. Let people know where the money's coming from.
And so you said these changes need to be made. What do you think would be a better approach to improving campaign finance here in Rhode Island?
Yeah, I think especially on campaign finance around ethics, these are things that we can always be doing better at. We've made some progress in Rhode Island. You have to report who donates to you for anyone who donates $100 or more. I've made it a practice of just reporting almost everybody. But transparency is key. Filing is key. Promoting good government, good ethics. There's a lot of distrust in Rhode Island. And for good reason. Our leaders in the past have done some really stupid things. So people are rightly skeptical, and the only way that we build the trust back that I think that we need to do the big things in our state comes by elected officials up and down at every level just being proactively transparent with their campaigns and their campaign finance, and just how they behave once they are in office. You know, there's this thing that happens where, especially with lawyers in private practice in the General Assembly, they'll pass these very obscure laws and then market their own private law firms as the only ones who can solve your problem if you get in trouble with it. And that's just like, that's crazy. These are things that in the 21st century need to end.
And we've been talking a lot about debates at the beginning of the show. We were speaking with Valerie Endres about the importance of debates and why we haven't really seen as many as we thought. Do you think all of the lower level candidates, not necessarily the governor, and do you think everyone should be engaging in debates?
Absolutely. I mean, especially in these lower level races where it's really hard to get press coverage because there's so many of them and there's so much happening. It's hard. You know, if you can follow the governor's race through the newspaper. You can't really follow these smaller races, you know, through the media, through the papers, online, because there's only so much. You guys only have so much bandwidth to cover everything. And so I have called for a debate as soon as the filing deadline was finished. I called for debate in our race. It was roundly ignored by both of my opponents. We then had a candidates forum about 2 or 3 weeks ago at Federal Hill Pizza. Both of them declined to show up. I went and showed up and answered questions, which was a lot of fun. But I think, you know, we have a debate scheduled for the day before the election, and I think that's not fair to voters, especially when there are, you know, 3 candidates with ideas and backgrounds and things that should be debated. And these things shouldn't be debated just, you know, one-on-one at doors with people where you can paint candidates in whatever color you want. You should have to stand up and answer questions. It's not hard.
And why do you think your opponent declined to take part in a debate?
I mean, obviously my opinion is that they know I'm the best candidate and they don't want to be on camera having that shown. No, you know, people make up excuses all the time. I'm too busy, I have other things to do. I don't know, you'd have to ask them.
And so how have you gotten around that? Because when you're in a debate, it's very easy to say, okay, here's what I stand for. Here's my policy. And how have you gotten around that and gotten your message out in other ways?
Well, so we've focused a lot on certainly door knocking and going door to door and talking to people where they are. But we've also focused a lot on social media. That's where a lot of people are nowadays. One of my opponents doesn't even have any presence on the internet, which is bizarre in 2018. But you know, we've released a bunch of ads that we're getting great response on that just kind of outline my views on, you know, things overall, the economy, housing, immigration, you know, the big projects that we need to do. So we're definitely focusing on social media. And over the next couple of weeks, all of the traditional campaign stuff, you know, the signs going up and mailings going out and all of that. So we're confident we can reach everybody.
And so talking a little bit, one of the big things that's happened in the last couple of weeks, the decision over the Paw Sox not staying in Pawtucket.
Yep.
It's not your district exactly, but it's right next door. And in Rhode Island, everyone's neighbors.
Yep.
So what kind of an impact do you think that's going to have?
Well, it certainly has a psychological impact, and it's one more in a string of things that feel like Rhode Island is just being beaten down. And it started a long time. I mean, it started right when I was born with the savings and loan crisis, and at one thing after the other, and who's getting arrested, and what company is leaving, and what jobs aren't, all of this stuff. And so this was one more thing. So it hurt. I get that everyone's not a baseball fan, and that exactly how the deal was going to work was certainly subject for robust debate. But once they up and left, I think it showed more than anything else, beyond any of the specifics of the deal, that the way we do business in Rhode Island isn't working. This was a straightforward thing. It shouldn't have taken a year and a half to come to a conclusion. And when other people who might want to invest in Rhode Island see that, they're like, I'm just going somewhere else. I'm not dealing with this. They don't have their house in order. It's crazy. And we need to change that. And I think we changed that with new leadership. So
besides new leadership, what are some concrete things that need to change? Let's say you are elected, you are this new leadership. What can be done to really make a change?
So first, I and I've been talking about this the whole time, the economy. And for me, that falls into a couple of different buckets. And the first is protecting working families. I think we need to, over the next few years, raise the minimum wage because there are too many people in our state who work full-time and can't make ends meet. So that's one thing. We also need to help small businesses, and that is across the board. That's on taxes, it's on regulations, to make them make sense. Protect people, but regulations that make sense. Increasing access to capital. Yeah, go ahead.
Talking a little bit about small businesses, it's interesting you juxtapose that with the $15 minimum wage, because one of the biggest complaints you hear is, I'm a small business, I can't afford that. So how can we help working families, because we don't want anyone to live in poverty, but at the same time, you don't want someone to have to lay off people or limit hours because I can't afford to stay in business and pay my workers.
So we have fallen into this trap where people on different sides of this debate have fallen into, you're either pro-worker or pro-business, and I reject that as completely false. I think we need, but you're absolutely right. My dad owned a small business, and at one point it wasn't supporting our family anymore. I understand how hard it is. How hard it is to make the payroll, how hard it is to cover all your expenses. We have to make it so that our small businesses are growing and attracting more customers and creating new jobs. One way that we do that, tourism has gotten a lot of publicity, but I was very proud while I was working in economic development for the state to have a big role in bringing Norwegian Airlines here to Rhode Island. And I can't tell you, almost every day I'm at a restaurant or a coffee shop or somewhere in my district where there are visitors from the UK and Ireland who wouldn't be here otherwise, spending money in our small businesses. So if we can attract more people to Rhode Island, our restaurants can grow, our shops can grow, but it's more than that too. It's the kind of cutting edge things we should have frankly been doing a long time ago, like investing in R&D in our universities and keeping college graduates here. All of those things that frankly is what fueled Boston's economy. We just dropped the ball. And up in Massachusetts, you go up to Massachusetts, ask, what did you do? They're like, we built Harvard and MIT and waited 200 years. Well, we have Brown and RISD and URI. We need to be aggressively investing in them, which is also why one of the other projects I worked on that I'm very proud of. In 2016, voters approved an innovation campus proposal on the ballot, and I worked on turning that into reality to help universities and businesses come together, create new R&D, commercialize that, and turn that into companies and jobs that are here in Rhode Island. And we need to do more of that.
And speaking a little bit about universities keeping grads here, do you think the governor's plan for free tuition helps keep college graduates, college students, all of that talent? Do you think it helps keep them here?
I do. And I think that this is an issue that gets real heated real fast. Because everyone goes up in arms. This isn't about, well, I had to pay for college, so should these kids. It now costs about 3 times as much to go to college today as it did when I was born, which is 3 times the hours you would have to work in order to work your way through college. It's just impossible. And it's not the fault of students. It's not the fault of parents. It's the fault of politicians who have kicked the can down the road, let these costs skyrocket. And for example, I have over $100,000 in student debt. And that curtails my ability to buy a home, to make other investments in my life. And this is just a problem we need to solve, and there needs to be a cutoff point. The economy's just changed. At one point, we didn't have public high school. And no one is asking to be sent a bill for high school the way some people are asking, well, you can send them a bill for college. So that's one side of it. The other side of it is you don't need a 4-year degree to get a good job. Our leaders in the past have done a real disservice to our students by forcing everyone into this mentality that if you don't go to college, then somehow you're worth less. And that's not true. But what you do need is some degree or credential past high school. You need trade school, career and tech education, an apprenticeship. There's a lot of building finally happening in Providence, but there's a shortage of construction workers. And those are good jobs with good benefits that we should be helping kids get the skills they need to get those to. So I think it's an all of the above approach, and we can't let anything fall off the table.
And how can we help guide our students better, particularly in your district in Providence, but across the state as well? How can we help our schools and our students to take this new approach of not everyone has to go to college, or if you do want to go to college, here's how it can be affordable, or here's a way to explore a trade. What are some of the ways we can invest in our schools and help with that?
Yeah, so in my district, most of the students are Latino. And a report came out a few months ago that showed that Latino youth have the worst prospects in Rhode Island of any state in the country. And to me, that is a huge, huge, huge problem, because we are just consigning a huge part of the population to not getting the education they need, and that'll have ripple effects for decades. So I think it's part of it is a mentality change. We have to take the stigma away from working in the trades and working in manufacturing, because there are a lot of good, dignified jobs there. We do have to invest in schools. Obviously, that's a thing every politician says, but especially the buildings. They're falling apart. I was in Mount Pleasant High School a couple of weeks ago, and it's falling apart. So you have to fix that. And then you got to give teachers the room to embrace their students and help them become creative, productive citizens. There's another thing that people don't talk about a lot, that we've spent a lot of time shuffling kids into math and science and engineering, and that's all super important. We need that. But as automation becomes more and more of a force in our economy, we're going to need workers who really have the human skills that can't be automated, who have the creativity, the critical thinking skills. We have to put as much focus on that as we do on math and science, and a lot of that comes through the arts and drama and theater and music, and making sure kids have exposure to that and not cutting those things as the first thing on the chopping block. So again, this is a big topic. There's a lot to do, but especially on education, my approach is always going to be all of the above.
Well, definitely a lot of food for thought there.
Yes.
Thanks so much for coming with us, sharing your thoughts. And of course, best of luck in
Thank you very much.
In the primary. Things are heating up. It's coming up soon. So.
Almost there. 3 more weeks, everybody.
Well, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll be back with our next and final guest of the hour in just 1 minute here on GoLocal Live.